Hello and welcome to the World Building Institute. I'm Matthew and today we are going to be talking about villains. I love villains. One of my original ideas for a YouTube channel was In Defensive, a series where I was going to try and defend popular villains, proving that they are in fact the heroes of their story. Even back in high school, I loved villains. My English A-level coursework was a defense of Iago from Shakespeare's Othello, which was a bit controversial, but the examiner clearly thought it was pretty good because I got 90% on it. So I'm sure you can tell this is a project I'm really excited about, and if it's something that excites you as well, consider ringing that bell and gently caressing that subscribe button. If people keep smashing it, it's gonna break. Across the Rogues Gallery series, we're going to be talking about the various types of villains and how they tick. There are plenty of types of villains, so today we're going to open up with Rivals and Nemeses. Part 1. Types of Rival. A rival is a villain with a deeply personal connection to your protagonists. Typically the motives of a rival aren't world-shaking, but small or personal. They may believe that the hero has slighted them in some way, and be seeking revenge against them. They may seek the same goal as the hero and use different means to pursue them, or they may simply be deranged and fixated on the hero for reasons unknown. Now, there are obviously different motives besides these, but these are the three most common. I'm going to go through each of these motives and provide an example. First up, we have the Seeker of Vengeance. This is a rival who has lost something of great value at the hands of the hero or an organisation the hero is a part of. They're often the most relatable of the types of rivals we're going to talk about today. Perhaps the hero is a former criminal who is genuinely reformed and is very sorry for what happened. Perhaps the villain is mistaken and wrongly believes the hero responsible for their loss. Perhaps the hero is not as heroic as they first seem, or perhaps the situation was complicated, and while the hero does regret their actions, they would not change them as they were for the best for the world at large. Or finally, perhaps the hero does not know why they are being sought, only that they are being pursued by someone who claims to seek revenge. Ulysses from Fallout New Vegas, the best Fallout game, is in this last category. For those of you who've not played New Vegas, you play it as a baggage courier who gets shot in the head by Chandler from Friends and dragged into a brewing war in the Mojave. Across the game there are many factions that you may ally with, fight, betray, or even wipe out. Ulysses had nothing to do with any of that. His motives come from a time when you were just a lowly courier dropping off a package to a fledgling community in a huge valley known as the Divide, a place Ulysses believed could make a good home for him, as his had been destroyed long ago. The package the courier delivered caused the nuclear warhead stored in the valley to detonate, destroying the fledgling nation outright. Ulysses survived, barely, and learned a great lesson of the power of individuals to change history, beginning also to plot revenge on the courier for the destruction of their home. He is a cunning and skilled opponent whose ultimate plan for revenge is to fire the remaining missiles at the courier's homeland, the New California Republic, and the people who destroyed Ulysses' old home, Caesar's Legion, while the courier watches, unable to prevent the deaths of thousands, just as Ulysses was so many years ago. As you can see, while the objective is extreme, Ulysses believes that this represents a kind of justice. This is what makes the revenge-seeking rival so compelling. They are absolutely certain they are correct. And while you may look at their scheme and go, bit much mate, you may actually agree that the hero needs punishing. Next up we have the Dark Mirror, the rival who uses different means to pursue the same ends. This is the one that's most open to a friendly rivalry, which could be used in situations where the heroes don't despise the means used by the rival, but are still in competition with them. It's particularly useful for Indiana Jones type shenanigans. People competing to grab a powerful artifact don't necessarily want to murder each other. However, it can get dark real fast. To quote the great philosopher Thomas Hobbes, If any two men desire the same thing, which, nevertheless, they cannot both enjoy, they become enemies, and in the way to their end, which is principally their own conservation, and sometimes their delectation only, endeavour to destroy or subdue one another. In modern English, the most common reason people decide to kill one another is they both want something they think only one of them can have. This may be an object, a title, a territory, or even something more abstract, like a person's love. Take Zuko and Azula from Avatar: The Last Airbender, which, if you've not seen it, stop watching this video and go watch it right goddamn now. It's really good, seriously, you will thank me later. Both of these two characters have the same objective throughout the series: to win the love of their abusive father, Fire Lord Ozai. This is to be achieved by capturing or killing the Avatar, master of all four elements. Zuko pursues this objective with only one ship, its crew, and his uncle Iroh, the best character in the history of television. This is because when Prince Zuko was younger, he was exiled from the Fire Nation for speaking out of turn to his aforementioned very abusive father. He is angry but not cruel, and across the course of the show, we see him change, losing his anger and growing into a capable leader, breaking away from his desire for his father's affection. Azula, meanwhile, relies on cruelty and the fear this inspires to motivate others to serve her, a trait she seems to have picked up from her father. She hunts the Avatar with the might of a military superpower at her back, as well as anyone else she can scare into serving her. Her obsession with loyalty and power leads to a slow but steady decline in her mental state. Her journey mirrors Zuko's almost perfectly. As Zuko secures an alliance and budding friendship with Team Avatar, Azula's friends betray her. As Zuko grows stronger and more certain of himself, Azula becomes more unhinged, weaker. Ultimately, their Agni Kai for the title of Fire Lord, arguably the best fight of the series, is a hugely emotional confrontation, where we see the full extent of both Zuko and Azula's transformations. This is the real purpose of the Dark Mirror. They give your hero an opportunity to reflect on what they are, and what they can yet be. At one point, Zuko dreams of two dragons. A blue dragon that represents Azula, and the part of Zuko that is like Azula, and a red dragon representing Iroh, and Zuko's conscience. He has this dream after helping his old enemy, the Avatar, and it shows an awareness that he and Azula are alike, and that he risks becoming like her. Seriously, look at the framing of this shot. He's sat in the throne at the middle, there is the red dragon on one side, the blue dragon at the other, in almost perfect symmetry. Or at least that's one way to interpret it. It's a dream within a work of fiction, so who the hell knows what was originally intended. And the final type is the Madman. The Madman is a kind of miscellaneous category for characters who are obsessed, but not for a reason that clearly fits in the categories up above. They are fixated on the hero and may attempt to kill them, or they may be more interested in corrupting them, bringing them around to their way of thinking slowly but surely. They are more likely to have a desire to not kill the hero, and may even feel an affection of sorts for them. Obviously, being a none of the above category, madmen can be tricky to define, and in my experience, work better with some degree of the other categories mixed in. Take, for example, the various versions of the Joker. Excluding the Joker from the film, Joker, the word Joker is going to be semantically satiated after this section. I'm very sorry. But which Joker is the best Joker? We can mostly probably agree that it was Heath Ledger's Joker, who is a pure madman, obsessed with Batman kind of because he sees him as his antipode, and he revels in that conflict between chaos and order. But I would imagine most people's second place would be the Jack Nicholson Joker, who was a hybrid revenge-seeker madman. As in that film, it's revealed that the Batman caused him to become the Joker, after knocking him into a vat of chemicals. Batman also has a closer relationship with the Joker himself in this film, because it is the Joker, as Jack Napier, his old name, that murdered the Batman's parents, which is a change I actually really like to their rivalry. It's better if this type of relationship flows both ways. But finally, I think we can all agree that Cesar Romero's Joker, also a pure madman, is kind of the worst, if we ignore Jared Leto because he hasn't been seen much with Batman yet, but he makes my point as well because he's also, from what we've seen so far, a pure madman, not interested in revenge or anything. But the Cesar Romero Joker is far and away the most fun. Seriously, watch this clip.
Now an instant twice and neatly wrap these guests of mine. And no more will they jeer and scoff or cut their circulation off. If they do not see the joke, pull the ropes and let them choke. It's like being caught.
That is the only time in the series that happens, and it's so weird, and I love it. The point I'm trying to make with this list is that a madman done well, like Heath Ledger's Joker, is often a seriously compelling villain, like moment-defining in a lot of cases. A lot of people argue that Iago from Othello, who I mentioned up at the top, is a madman. They don't particularly get why he's fixated on Othello. They describe him as a motiveless malignity, and this kind of focus on Iago as motiveless has made him really interesting to a lot of critics and writers. That said, a madman done badly, like the Cesar Romero Joker, unfortunately, isn't as compelling. They're kind of funny, I guess, but they're not very good as a villain. The only consistent thing across all of the Jokers is an unexplained fixation on the Batman, and a desire to make him abandon his commitment to following his very simple list of rules. And most of them succeed. Jack Nicholson's Joker gets killed? Murdered? I can't really decide which it is by the Batman. Heath Ledger's Joker forces Batman to commit a gross invasion of privacy on the hundreds of thousands of people living in Gotham City. Even Cesar Romero Joker gets Batman to go along with a ransom exchange, which is against Batman's rules. This is the key use of the madman. Their madness is an infection. It can drive people to evil if it's done well. It's also worth pointing out that even a pure madman will have a motive. It will just be weird and abstract, like Heath Ledger Joker and Batman's chaos versus order dichotomy thing. Literally, all that Joker wants to prove is that anyone can be made to do evil stuff if they're just given a little push. I should also point out that all of these types can overlap. The best rival I've ever made, who I'm going to talk about at the end of this video, had elements from all three. With all this discussed, we can now move on to how to create characters of these types. Part 2. How to create a rival. Now, if you're familiar with all of the characters that are used as examples up above, you will already have spotted a key theme around rivals. They are almost always kind of likable. Even if you hate them, they should be charismatic enough that people will kind of miss them when they're gone, that they love to hate them. This is because your heroes are going to be seeing quite a lot of them. They will be chasing them down or leading them into traps or whatever. And that means they are going to be interacting with the rival a lot. So, advice number 1, make them either likable or someone people like to hate. Next, number 2, make sure you have a clear understanding of their personality. If you understand the rival well, you will be able to understand the type of plots and schemes they may use. If they care about morality, they may be unlikely to harm innocent people in pursuit of their objective. If they are reckless, they may launch attacks on the heroes with little forethought. Having the rival behave in a consistent manner is important for the same reason as their charisma. Your heroes will meet them a lot, and they need to act in a consistent manner in order for the heroes to be able to defeat them. Madmen can get a bit of a pass here, but they should still be consistent to some degree. Maybe they only target civilians to try and force the hero to make awful choices. The schemes may differ every time, but the target remains the same. So that's advice number 2, consistent characterization. And finally, number 3, know their motivation. This is the core of most of the villains that we're going to look at in this series, but for the rival it is particularly important, because it will also, in most cases, inform at least one of your heroes. The rival is a part of their life and vice versa. Knowing why will help you understand why they are doing the things they are doing, and may help you inform their actions and decisions. If you understand all 3 of those above steps, you should be able to present a realistic and compelling villain. And now, if you will indulge me, I will present my example of the rival archetype. Part 3. Tide Al-Qatar. Tide of the Al-Qatar tribe is a minor villain in the campaign I'm running at the minute. He is the prince of a now dead tribe, from the Great Desert to the west of the kingdom where the game is taking place. He currently runs a small gang of criminals, but his connections with other criminal organisations mean he always has somewhere to hide. To understand Tide's tale, you must understand the history of the tribes of Old Thothatar. The Federation of Thothatar was a loose collection of the desert tribes, who banded together under an elected High King, though it was almost always a member of the Al-Qatar tribe. The Federation existed to settle disputes between the various tribes and to lead them in times of war. The goddess Galama of the winds and freedom, impressed by the commitment to the tenets of her faith by these tribes, offered the first king of the Federation a legendary bow, Windcaller. A Windcaller, when fired, conjures up a blast of air. If you're stood on sand or rock, these are sucked up into it and can slash through the skin because they're fired at such high speeds. The Federation lasted for around 400 years, at the end of which time the Kingdom of Alavania launched an attack to reclaim stolen property from a tribe on their border. This tribe called on the Federation for aid, who rallied as many of the others as possible. The war would have been a crushing defeat for Alavania, who regarded the desert folk as little more than savages, and thus were not prepared for their great military skill. However, in an early skirmish of the war, the final king of the Federation, Almed al-Qatar, was slain by a stray arrow. On his deathbed, some say he declared his younger son, Esmed, as his heir. Normally, in a war, the Federation leadership would pass to the heir of his tribe, before an election was called at the war's end. But with the tribe's inheritance disputed and a renewed Alavanian offensive, the Federation crumbled. Tribes left, desperate to avoid the oncoming onslaught, and the great Al-Qatar tribe split into 2 branches. Those who remained in the Al-Qatar stayed with the eldest son, and the Estar tribe, who followed the younger brother, Esmed, when he took his father's bow and rode off into the desert. Time passed, and the 2 tribes took very different paths. The tribe of the elder brother, the Al-Qatar, became feared soldiers and slavers, clinging to survival by whatever means necessary in a world without their allies to protect them. To the Al-Qatar, who had spent most of their history building this grand federation, its fall must have seemed like the end of the world, and in that world they would do anything they had to in order to survive. The tribe of the younger brother, the Estar tribe, dedicated themselves to Galama and to protecting the peoples of the deserts from threats, both external and internal. With histories like these, you can see why the tribes had a long and bloody history, but with Windcaller and the goddess on their side, the Estar won many victories. All of this changed with the birth of Taid. As a young man, Taid was much more willing to rely on mercenaries and slave soldiers than his ancestors had been. He convinced his father that the time had come to eliminate their rivals once and for all. His father agreed, and together they led a bloody campaign of extermination against the Estar, and succeeded, though at a great price in both gold and lives. Every man and boy of the Astar tribe was killed, every woman and girl captured and enslaved. The only exception to this rule being the young prince of the Astar, Zayn. Taid took him as a personal slave, a trophy to his great triumph. This would prove to be a catastrophic error. Zayn, in time, would escape with a panther, kept by Taid's father as a pet, and the two of them committed to their own campaign against the Al-Qatars. By its end, all of the adult men of the Al-Qatar tribe lay dead, and the surviving women of the Astar tribe had been released. Only Taid survived, fleeing the desert into Alavania with Windcaller in hand, where he became a bandit chief. Given time, Taid felt the flame of vengeance ignite in his heart. When he discovered that Zayn had pursued him out of the desert, he felt a smile creeping across his lips. He realized he didn't need his bandits. He needed Zayn, and Zayn needed him. Their battles would be the greatest duel in all the annals of the tribes. The twin princes of dust. Taid is a charismatic man, a skilled manipulator, and a talented archer. He enjoys tormenting Zayn and is almost self-aware of his fixation on him. He views him as his ordained enemy, and does not intend to kill him, but merely to torment him until one of them is dead. Why would he want to kill him? Zayn is the only thing that gives his life any purpose. His schemes tend to place innocent people in jeopardy to remind Zayn of the innocence he lost, and often force Zayn to choose between stopping Taid once and for all, or saving these people in this moment. In terms of the categories provided at the beginning of the video, he has elements of all three. His motive is in large part revenge. Him and Zayn both have this kind of mirror going on, where they are both the last of their people, they are skilled in the same things, and Taid is fixated with Zayn in a way that goes beyond just revenge. It is a madman's fixation. He has a really good rival plotline. My players hate him, but they enjoy their interactions with him. After the very first encounter with him, one of my players, quite a quiet, reserved person, doesn't swear much, declared Taid the epitome of bastard. They really hated him. He's a kind of suave, arrogant type who will whistle the song of Zayn's people at him while he snipes innocent civilians from a nearby tower. That is Taid for you. Okay, that is this video done. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please remember to like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell to get notified whenever I release a video. My copy of Tasha's has been delayed, so next week's video will be on the most recent Unearthed Arcana classes, the Drake Warden and the Path of the Ascendant Dragon. I'll give my opinion on the classes therein. My Tasha's review will have to wait until December. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next week. I've been Matthew, and you've been watching the World Building Institute. Goodbye.